I'm Dr. John Gartner.
And I'm Dr. Harry Segal.
And welcome to another session of Shrinking Trump.
This is our 21st episode. We've been at this for quite some time. And we began this show because we felt that no one was noticing the early signs of dementia that Donald Trump was exhibiting almost every time he went on television or did one of his rallies. And we saw that because of his problems with speech, what John keeps explaining is phonemic paraphasias, where people can't finish a word that they've begun, so they kind of struggle. We also saw Trump's strange gait. That's also a sign of early sign of dementia. And finally, a kind of reduction in the complexity of his thinking, so that in his rallies, instead of having elaborating ideas, he tends to gum them together. This is on top of what John has talked about for years and has campaigned for people to understand is his severe personality disorder known as malignant narcissism. And has this been a week or what for that? Right, John?
I'm so glad you said that. Before I get into the week, though, I just want to show one little cartoon because, we're called Shrinking Trump. And so I love this cartoon because it's a cartoon it's called Shrinking. For those of you who are listening, there's a giant Kamala Harris holding him in the palm of her hand going, "Oh, how absolutely precious." And there's a tiny little Trump in her hand, and she's looking condescendingly at him with the same face she did at the debate, and it's called shrinkage. I just wanted to show that at the top of the show because, as we've been pointing out, the original theme of the show was that it was a double entendre. We were shrinking Trump in terms of understanding him as shrinks, but also Trump is organically shrinking because he has organic brain damage and it's deteriorating. And he has and it's a personality disorder, which also gets worse over time. And the combination of the two is that he is going to deteriorate. Well, boy, this week was a good example of that. But also, as you said, Harry, a good example of the issue of malignant narcissism and how it's played out in this campaign. I have frequently said that Trump is the American Hitler. Not to be provocative, but to point out that Trump and Hitler share the same diagnosis, that malignant narcissism was developed by Erich Fromm, who escaped the Nazis, to explain the psychology of Hitler. And some people have pushed back on that and saying that's an overreaction or that doesn't fit Trump. We're not saying he's as bad as Hitler. He doesn't necessarily have the power to be as bad as Hitler, but he has the same basic orientation. So what's been going on this week? Harry, when people look back on this election 50 years from now, we often look back on elections and we remember one line from a debate. And that's how we remember the whole election, right? And I believe that 50 years from now, when they show a picture of this debate in an American history book, it's going to say they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, right? It's so crazy. And it was shockingly crazy. And it was the craziest thing he said at the debate. So you would think that he'd want to kind of get away from the cats and dogs, right? And focus on inflation or whatever, even immigration. But because Trump can't not fight back and always double down, instead, this whole week of his campaign has been about the fact that he's running on the dogs and cats issue.
Now I want to just pause for 1 second, John, because there's something subtly disturbed about what he did, which is there was this meme spread by Laura Loomer and other people in the far right media saying that illegal Haitian migrants, they're not illegal, actually, they're part of a program and they're legal, were eating pets. Now, the mainstream wasn't thinking about that, but the right wing was. It was all over Twitter, right? So Trump's deterioration is such that he introduces it in this abrupt, strange way, doesn't gently introduce the topic to prepare the audience. He just goes, and in Springfield, they're eating cats and dogs, right? So it looks even crazier than it is.
Right.
And the reason why I'm saying this is because he's lost his political acumen to have introduced that idea and then give it credence. He just blurted it out, which made him look even crazier.
And that's the cognitive deterioration. So on a good day, he's a racist. On a bad day, he's an incomprehensible racist.
Well put.
Okay, so this is the amazing thing about this. Let's look at the Republican mayor of Springfield is saying this is not true. Let's see that headline. Springfield mayor on politicians after bomb threat. Quote, it was their words that did it. Okay, because what happened in Springfield is that as a result of him saying this about the Haitians, I'm sure most people who are listening know this already, there were 33 bomb threats that closed the elementary school, that closed a local college, Wittenberg College, closed the library, closed the town hall, closed some of the hospitals had to be evacuated. Okay, so basically the entire town of Springfield, which is mostly white, is under terrorist threat. It's under a terrorist threat where you can't send your kids to school, you can't go to a store, you can't do anything because of a fear of an explosion, which is a direct response to Donald Trump's statements about Springfield. Now, how do I know that? Well, let's look at the next graphic. Here's an email from one of the bomb threateners. Quote, my hometown of Springfield is becoming a third world expletive because you allowed the federal government to dump these expletive here. The email stated, quote, we have Haitians eating our animals, and then you lie and claim this is not happening. When we see this happening, I'm here to send a message. I placed a bomb in the following locations, ... It states listing Springfield City Hall, Springfield Driver Exam Station, Ohio License Bureau South Side, Springfield Academy of Excellence, Fulton Elementary School as places under threat. So what we have here is a direct, unambiguous cause and effect relationship, right? Donald Trump is causing a terrorist attack on the town of Springfield. Okay. And not only that, it's also attracted the Proud Boys, who are now marching in Springfield. Can we see that video?
They are, and they're horrible, and they look so pathetic. It's just a joke.
They do look pathetic. They look like a straggly group of
ne'er-do-wells. But they're standing.
But still, it's scary. It's still a paramilitary group invading a town. And let's see the flyer that they've been putting in Haitian neighborhoods. Foreigners and Haitians out. There is no place in America for this filth. We don't need more police officers. We need mass deportations. It goes on like that. America first. And it's co-sponsored by the Trinity White Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. Nice to see they're doing some cross-marketing. And the font, for those of you who couldn't see, is very clearly a font of like 1930s Germany. I mean, it's right. Clearly an allusion, right?
Absolutely. It's sort of a Nazi font, so to speak.
It's a Nazi font, thank you. Yeah, Nazi 12.0 or whatever. Yeah, how come Nazi font isn't offered by Word?
If Trump wins, it'll happen.
Well, yeah. People are going to say I shouldn't laugh at that. Okay. And then lastly, this is a little bit long, but I just wanted to include, this is a TikTok video that just an ordinary random citizen of Springfield made, talking about how her town has changed since Donald Trump's statement.
Hi friends, coming to you live from Springfield. Yes, that's Springfield. And I am looking weary today because I am. Though we have been featured on many national news outlets this summer, it has been 3 days since we are thrust into the most ridiculous of national news conversations. I know many of you are finding the news coming out of Springfield, Ohio to be hilarious and meme-worthy, but I will tell you, living here, it is anything but funny. And I know this makes me sound like the wet blanket that can't take a joke, but what is happening in our community groups, of course, those community groups are being flooded by people who have never stepped foot in our town. But even before that, what is happening in our community groups is a level of vitriol and nationalism that I have never seen. I find it important to tell you that there are definitely people causing a lot of problems here in Springfield, but it's the people who look like me. You'll see people saying that Springfield is turning into a third world country, but I will tell you that the people marching with AR-15s in the street are white. The people threatening violence on our community are white. None of us deny that the increase to our population has strained our resources, and the language barriers are causing challenges that we need to work through. The fact is simply that we're under-resourced. We do need more doctors, we do need more translators, we do need people in public service offices like the DMV. However, I don't know how this has landed us in a place where many segments of our population fear violence on a daily basis. Yesterday absolutely broke my heart as I saw our city hall evacuated, one of our elementary schools evacuated, our SPCA closed for the day, 2 of our downtown businesses closed for the day. Partly, I imagine, because of the many, many threats that are circulating our beloved city, but partly due to the fact that we are now, right now, a national news craze. It's hard to walk down the street right now, not because there are Haitians laying on it, but because there are news anchors on every corner, YouTubers, vloggers with microphones and their phones in the air recording our streets. What I'm hoping you guys will see in the greater nation is that our streets are full of kind people, that our streets are safe. We do struggle with all the things that any city struggles with. We do have homeless people. We do have crime, but this is not a result of immigration.
Wow, she great.
Yeah. There's just a real person talking about how her town has been turned upside down by this blood libel. You know, Harry, I talked about this last week, that it's been since the Middle Ages, there's been this blood libel about Jews, that they use the blood of Christian children for their Passover matzah, and it has incited year after year, century after century, violence against Jews. So that I was saying, in terms of this issue about Trump being the American Hitler, he's now running on blood libel. That's the official platform of the Republican Party now. And not only is he running on it, but that's been the whole focus of this week. So one of the things that I want to point out is, now that we know his words have produced this terrorist attack on the town, has that in any way caused them to back off? No. It's caused them to double, triple, and quadruple down. Here is Trump being asked, now that there are bomb threats, does he want to address that?
The mayor of Springfield, Ohio, the police chief, the Republican governor of Ohio have all debunked this story about people eating pets. And now there are bomb threats at schools and kids being evacuated. Why do you still spread this false story?
The real threat is what's happening at our border, because you have thousands of people being killed by illegal migrants coming in and also dying. You have women dying as they come up. They're coming up in large groups. We call it a caravan. I think I came up with that name, but it's really what it is. 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 people. And you have large numbers of women being killed in those caravans coming up to this country. And then when they get here, they can go into the country and they end up being sex slaves and everything else. Those are your real problems, not the problem that you're talking about. Yeah, okay.
So he's saying the bomb threats aren't a problem. And he goes on to double down.
Motor vehicle accidents have skyrocketed. Recording of 911 calls even show residents are reporting that the migrants are walking off with the town's geese. They're taking the geese. You know where the geese are? In the park, in the lake. And even walking off with their pets. My dog's been taken. My dog's been stolen. This can only happen. These people are the worst.
So this is him in Arizona. The earlier clip was him in California. The point I'm making, we're going to hear another Arizona quote, and then we're going to go to Nevada. He's crisscrossing the country this week, campaigning on blood libel.
But and by doing it, John, which is something that really disturbs me, he's dominating the news cycles because people then get outraged by it. Our guest is going to describe the 4 steps that Trump takes to maintain this hold on his followers. But he's doing it on purpose. This is not crazy. This is a strategy. we fire up our base, we dominate the news cycle, so news about Kamala Harris doesn't really come through, and we rile up our base so that they will be screaming for blood. That's what he's doing, and I wish the media would just balance the coverage and give a lot more time to Kamala.
No, that's an excellent point. And in terms of ramping up the outrage, here's the other thing he said in Arizona.
And illegal Haitians, and he came in, illegal Haitian migrants taking over a beautiful place. It was so beautiful. Springfield, Ohio. I was there. I campaigned there a while ago. Springfield, it was so beautiful. Now it's just, what a place. Can you imagine you have this small little community, all of a sudden you have 20,000 illegals in your community. Nobody knows where they come from. I'm angry about young American girls being raped and sodomized and murdered by savage criminal aliens.
Raped and sodomized and murdered?
Yeah. And you hear all the booing in the crowd. He's riling them up, right? That these are monsters.
And they're not illegal. They're there on a specific, because the town needed workers. This was a collaboration. It's just astounding to me. This apocalyptic idea that the American town has now been destroyed by these others, these dark black Haitians,
Right. And that woman on the TikTok said, I don't know what they're talking about. We just live in a normal Midwestern town. Our streets are safe. People are friendly. I mean, it's a complete fabrication. It's a complete lie. Of course, they know that the thing about the pets is a lie. They've been informed that it's a lie. But this whole image of this apocalyptic, as you say, dark vision of this Midwestern city, you have to believe that everybody living in these Midwestern cities in the Rust Belt that we basically is our blue wall for the election have to look at this and say, that's not the Midwest I know. I've been to Springfield. I know these towns. That's not reality.
It's what the woman was saying on TikTok. We have problems like everyone else. We need more resources to help with all these immigrants who don't speak English. She said, but there's no crime rise because of them. Just the opposite. What I've heard is they're very hardworking people, and immigrants tend to be that way.
Exactly. Now, here in Nevada, he refuses to even to say anything negative about the bomb threats. All he says, he doesn't know anything about them.
Do you denounce the bomb threats in Springfield, Ohio?
I don't know what happened with the bomb threats. I know that it's been taken over by illegal migrants, and that's a terrible thing that happened. Springfield was this beautiful town, and now they're going through hell. It's a sad thing. Not going to happen with me, I can tell you right now.
He's not even against bomb threats. It's not a hard question to answer. Are you against the bomb threats?
No. He's got one thing he wants to do. He has to gin up that base.
Yeah.
Because he knows he'll lose if he doesn't.
Yeah. And the other person who's ginning it up is JD Vance. And so the quote that got JD Vance in trouble this week, and I wanted to talk about this, is he said to Dana Besh, if I have to make up stories to bring attention to this, I will. And of course, everybody jumped on that. Oh, see, he's admitting that he's making up stories. I think actually, Harry, that was a Freudian slip. I think what he meant to say is if I have to make something a story to bring attention to it, and after all, that's what you and I have been doing, right? We're trying to make Trump's cognitive decline a story to bring the public's attention to it. That's what he meant to say. So when everyone jumped on it, oh, see, he admitted that he's making up stories. He was, I think, actually, in one sense, rightfully indignant that, no, that's not what I meant to say. But as we know with Freudian slips, when someone makes a Freudian slip, what they mean to say is not at the deepest level what they actually mean. And a Freudian slip is when you accidentally tell the truth.
Right. When what you really are thinking intrudes and replaces what you intend to say.
So he wanted to say, we've got to make it a story. Instead, he said, we've got to make up a story. Well, this next little sequence is all about, that's all JD Vance has been doing this week, is making up stories about the Haitian immigrants. So one conservative group offered a reward for any proof of the Haitian cat eating. So here's a video that circulated on social media.
Yo, what is this they got on the grill?
Is that the big kiss cats?
Man, listen, man. There go a cat right there. His ass better get missing, man. Look like his homies on the grill, man. What the fuck?
Okay. Now, the only thing to know about this is the person in that tape is not a Haitian. It wasn't filmed in Springfield. And on the grill are chickens. Other than that, it's a smoking gun.
John, you're just being so picky. I mean,
I know.
It's data.
Well, I'll tell you who isn't picky, JD Vance, because here's his retweet of that video. Kamala Harris and her media apparatchiks should be ashamed of themselves. Another, quote, debunked story that turned out to have merit. 6.4 million views.
It's shameless, isn't it?
It's utterly shameless. Utterly shameless. That's really the word. But again, he's making stuff up. He is making stuff up. Here's another example of JD Vance making stuff up. And here's the thing: this is actually a rather long quote. It's Dana Bash interviewing him about this blood libel, and so it's a little bit long, but she absolutely, trounces him.
Mm-hmm.
Why have I talked about some of the things that I've been talking about? Let me just say this. My constituents have brought approximately a dozen separate concerns to me. 10 of them are verifiable and confirmable, and a couple of them I talk about because my constituents are telling me firsthand that they're seeing these things. So I have two options, Dana. I can ignore them, which is what the American media has done for years to this community, or I can actually talk about what people are telling me. And of course, many of the things that the media says are completely baseless have since been confirmed. For example, I was told, Dana, that by the American media that it was baseless that migrants were capturing the geese from the local park pond and eating them. And yet there are 911 calls from well before this ever became a viral sensation of people complaining about that exact thing happening. So my attitude is listen to my constituents. Sometimes they're going to say things that people don't like, but they're saying things that people don't like because their town has been overwhelmed, and it's my job to try to fight for them and to protect them. Kamala Harris opened the border, and now these people are suffering. That's what I'm focused on, Dana.
Senator, I have to go through several things that you just said. First of all, the Clark County Sheriff and the Ohio Department of Natural Resources reviewed 11 months of 911 calls. They only identified 2 instances of people alleging Haitians were taking geese out of parks. They found 0 evidence to substantiate those claims. Also, other evidence that you have talked about, even you've retweeted alleged evidence, are unsourced social media videos from a different city, apparently no connection to Haitians. And this is from a conservative activist who offered a $5,000 reward for such things. And then going just backly to the schools and the hospitals and so forth being overwhelmed, nobody is disputing that the town of Springfield, Ohio, needs help. But you're not just a bystander. You're the senator from Ohio. So instead of saying things that are wrong and actually causing the hospitals, the schools, the government buildings to be evacuated because of bomb threats, because of the cats and dogs thing, why not actually be constructive in helping to better integrate them into the community? Because there are a lot of employers there who say that the Haitian workers are helping fill jobs that they need desperately filled.
Dana, first of all, let me just respond to a couple of things that you said, but I want to start with something you said, which I think is frankly disgusting and is more appropriate for a Democratic propagandist than it is for an American journalist. There is nothing that I have said that has led to threats against these hospitals. These hospitals, the bomb threats and so forth, it's disgusting. The violence is disgusting. We condemn it. We condemn all violence.
Senator, this happened after you and President Trump were on the debate stage, said that cats and dogs were being eaten.
You asked a question, Dana, and I'm going to go ahead and answer it. What we have said.
Good work for Dana Bash, huh? She really did a great job there.
Dana Bash is amazing. And he's horrible, but his condescension is almost effective if you don't pay attention to what he's actually saying.
He said she's disgusting. He said that she was disgusting, that her question was disgusting.
No, he's learning from his boss.
But everything he said was a lie. There aren't 10 verifiable. In fact, the Wall Street Journal, I didn't put this up in the media list because, again, we just have way too much media. But there was a recent Wall Street Journal article where they investigated and actually found out that, no, there was like 2 911 calls,
Right.
Yeah. And actually, one of them, they went and investigated, was a woman who claimed that the Haitians had taken her cat. However, 2 weeks later, she found her cat in the basement and had to go and apologize to her Haitian neighbor with Google Translate for having accused her.
Right.
So that's the data that they're referring to. And everything else, he's just making it up.
He's making it up. Absolutely. No. And then he feigns outrage when he's called on it.
Right, exactly. And I just wanted to show this one thing to show how the party is even doubling down on this blood libel. I just wanted to show a roadside stand that the Arizona Republican Party put on the highway. Arizona GOP billboards implore voters to, quote, eat less kittens. Arizona's Republican Party erected about a dozen billboards in the Phoenix area that say eat less kittens and look similar to Chick-fil-A's promos. Arizona's Republican Party, approved that. So, it's funny. Vance says, well, we have to be able to laugh. We have to have a sense of humor. Their understanding of laughing is humiliating and libeling, other groups. That's funny. It's like the old days when it used to be funny to tell ethnic jokes, and then we kind of realized that wasn't so funny. They still think that's humor. That's funny.
Well, of course, John, this is demonizing Haitian immigrants as an example of how immigrants, particularly illegal ones, although they draw no distinction, are destroying the country. Sodomizing and murdering our women, and
right.
It's just disgusting.
Actually, Vance was confronted with the fact that they're legal, and he said, "Well, they're legal, but through this program, it is kind of a special program for Haitian immigrants." He goes, "But when our administration takes over, we're going to revoke that status, and so they'll become illegal. So I'm going to still call them illegal immigrants."
Really.
And just quickly, I wanted to show what the Republican governor of Ohio is saying about the cats and dogs.
And here's a question I never thought I would have to ask, but do you see any evidence as governor of the state that Haitian immigrants are eating pets?
No, absolutely not. That's what the mayor said. That's what the chief of police has said. I think it's unfortunate that this came up. Let me tell you what we do know, though. What we know is that the Haitians who are in Springfield are legal. They came to Springfield to work. Ohio is on the move, and Springfield has really made a great resurgence with a lot of companies coming in. These Haitians came in to work for these companies. What the companies tell us is that they are very good workers. They're very happy to have them there. And frankly, that's helped the economy.
So look, it's all a lie. The Republican mayor says it's a lie. The Republican governor says it's a lie. But the senator from Ohio believes that just keeps making up these lies. No, I guess there's nothing else to say about that, except that it's disgusting.
This is it. This is where we are.
This is where we are. Well, look, Harry, I want to move on to some good news. I think Trump is experiencing a little romance in his life.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah. Trump in love. It's very beautiful, really, in a sort of hideous kind of way. So
it's most beautiful.
But it's
everyone thinks so.
Yeah, he found a kindred spirit, Harry. What we're all searching for, right? He found a soulmate. Let's see what the Drudge Report is saying about it. Loomer MAGA love. Has he found his soulmate? Where is Melania? MTG calls Don in a rage. Civil war escalates, campaign in crisis. And there's a picture of him hugging Laura Loomer. And so if you don't know, we're going to introduce you to Laura Loomer so you understand who we're talking about. But The reason this is coming up is that Laura Loomer is conspicuously palling around with Donald Trump. She's traveling on his plane. He brought her to the debate. He's blowing kisses to her at the RNC. He brought her to the 9/11 memorial, which was only controversial because she's a 9/11 truther. But
right.
thought it appropriate to bring her as his +1
and
to the 9/11 memorial.
Just so people don't know, that means she's a conspiracy theorist who believe that 9/11 was faked, was set up by George W. Bush. That's what a truther is.
Right.
Or by Jews, or both.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, it's an inside job, or, all the Jews knew to leave work that day, whatever. It's that kind of stuff. But still, let's see a little recounting of their love story.
Thank you so much for inviting me to sit with you today. Pleasure. You're the best. I love you.
Really taken the country by storm. Very powerful person, very strong person, very courageous person, a warrior. Laura Loomer. Laura, where are you? Thank you, Laura. Great job you do.
We have a lot of great friends and a lot of great people. Laura, how are you? You look so beautiful, as always. That's a woman with courage. You don't want to be Loomered. If you're Loomered, you're in deep trouble. That's the end of your career, in a sense. Thanks, Laura. She's actually...
That's my that says Trump 2024.
Thank you.
Thank you. We love you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I love you. I love you, President Trump. Amazing speech, Kai. I loved it. I'll never give up on you. Amazing. You're amazing. I love you. Best president ever.
Somebody who's extremely shy, but really talented, and she's going places. Laura Loomer. Where's Laura? Laura. Where is Laura? She doesn't like the sanctimonious. She doesn't like the sanctus.
Hey, everybody. We're here at Bedminster. I'm with the greatest president ever, President Donald Trump, who is killing it right now. There's a new poll out, right? You're crushing it. You're up over 50 points. And it's a beautiful day here. Beautiful club. It's my first time here at Bedminster.
Well, it's great to have you, and you've been really very special. You work hard, and you are a very opinionated lady. I have to tell you that, and in my opinion, I like that.
Well, I
appreciate
that.
all of your support, and you've been terrific, and everybody appreciates you. So
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to sit with you today. Pleasure. You're the best. I love you.
I love that love story. So music, I don't know, it got a little tearful there.
Yes, but it's also played as if it's the Godfather theme, so it has that wonderful crossover. I have to tell you, it's so obvious.
Right.
And I was thinking it, and then Bill Maher talked about it, and then people tried to shush him. But I mean, come on. Melania has been nowhere nearby.
Yeah.
I mean, he cheated on Melania when she was pregnant with two people. I mean, this is not. He doesn't stop being impulsive. That's not who he is. But I think the fact that she is, she's whispering in his ear and she's pushing this stuff about the migrants.
Actually, we're going to get to that, but she's literally the person who has been pushing him to double down on the cats and dogs. One of the things we've noticed with Trump is that he retreats to his safe spaces. Right. And I think the point is he's under so much attack now, and there's so few safe spaces that what he does in those circumstances, he always gravitates towards the people who are the most extreme, who are the most worshipful and or conspiratorial. Right. Because these are the people that, who welcome him with open arms. And so he goes deeper and deeper into crazy. So I'm sorry, Harry, I forgot one thing about their love story. I actually did include this for you. Okay.
All right.
This is a picture of Laura and Trump together, and you'll see why I did it for Harry. For some reason, it just brings Harry intense pleasure to see Trump's plump derriere. So for those of you who are just listening, that's what it is. This is a picture of him and Laura with him particularly corpulent.
To quote Woody Allen, it's the size of a Buick.
So that one's for you, Harry. You're welcome. But what I was going to say is that part of the reason Trump is retreating to Laura Loomer right, is because she idealizes him. She worships him. Okay.
Sure.
And let me just show you a little piece of tape where she was talking on a podcast to someone about her feelings about Donald Trump.
I'll tell you a funny story. I dated somebody one time, and they thought that I was, too focused on Trump, and they said that I gave my activism in support of President Trump more attention than I gave them. And it's like, yeah, that's right, because Trump is more important than you. Trump is going to save our country. And so you need to understand that President Trump is more important than you. And if you think that you're more important than President Trump, then you have some kind of delusional personality disorder. So that was the end of that relationship.
That's
President
right.
Trump's my number one priority right now.
and so he should be.
She's a groupie. But now let's discover who is Laura Loomer.
Fannie Willis was constantly saying, well, ain't nobody but the law. I'm one of these, strong, independent black woman. I don't need no man. And I'm going to get Whitey. And I'm going to lock Donald Trump up, just like Letitia James, right? And she goes, now you're going to elect me, and I'm going to lock him up. We're going to get Trump. Like the way they talk and their little DEI Shaniqua voices, and it's just very piercing, very irritating sound. They all have the same voice. I'm talking about Kamala Harris, Letitia James, and Fannie Willis. Like all of the meritless DEI Shaniquas talk the same way. It's very obnoxious the way that they talk.
Has she listened to herself? She has the most annoying, horrible voice I've ever heard. Are you kidding
Another
me?
projection.
I listened to Kamala Harris or any of those other women in a split second before listening to this horror show.
Yeah. I don't think talk about the talentless DEI people. I mean, I don't think she's rising through the power of her talent.
Well, she is right. Like, what are her accomplishments?
Yeah, praising Trump.
It's vicious, unmediated racism.
Right.
Like, this is really what it is.
And talking about that, she has been the one who has been pushing him to push the cats and dogs. Okay, but as we've pointed out, that results in violence against the community that's being libeled. Well, Laura Loomer acknowledges that in this interview and says she doesn't care.
Every damn day we see another story about illegal aliens going to the Ritz-Carlton, illegal aliens getting free flights, illegal aliens getting free clothes and free cell phones, and someone's going to snap. Someone's going to snap. It's going to happen. And you know what? I'm not going to care when it happens. You know why? Because there's only so much people can take.
She doesn't care if they get hurt. She wants them to get hurt.
Oh, yeah.
So that's who Laura Loomer is. Now, here's the thing. Because he retreats to these safe spaces, and you're right, maybe the strategy is just to gin up his base more and more and more, but alienate everyone else.
Right.
Okay. Laura Loomer is hurting him with everyone else. Here's an interview on Fox.
Social media feeds have been inundated with remixes of his comments about, this fringe claim that Haitian immigrants are eating pets in Ohio. That was evidently brought to his attention by this figure, Laura Loomer, who has promoted this theory. He's been hanging around with her. How close is Trump to Laura Loomer, and why is he bringing her around with him?
Well, as President Trump said yesterday, this individual does not work for the campaign. She's simply a supporter of the president, and he doesn't agree with everything she said. He doesn't agree with everything that all of his supporters said. He is building a big tent movement, being supported by people like Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. And while they don't all agree on everything, they agree on the most important thing, and that is ensuring Kamala Harris cannot be elected as president of the United States, considering she is a radical liberal. And I'm glad you brought up healthcare, Jackie, because I'd love your audience to know where Kamala Harris stands on that issue. She supports a socialist takeover of our healthcare system, supporting Bernie Sanders' socialist Medicare for all, which would cost taxpayers $32 trillion. Kamala Harris also wants to give amnesty to the nearly 20 million illegal people that she's allowed into this country, which will absolutely devastate and crumble our healthcare system. And she wants to make taxpayers fund transgender surgeries for illegal immigrants. Those are radical positions. She does not deserve to be elected president president of the
Well,
United
Caroline,
States. The American people will make that clear on November 5th.
We did hear the former president try to distance himself from Laura Loomer, but he didn't denounce any specific statements that she has made. She once called 9/11 an inside job. He brought her to a 9/11 remembrance ceremony. She said that if Harris wins the election, the White House will smell like curry. That's a racist joke about Harris's Indian heritage. JD Vance's wife is Indian. I mean, does he denounce those statements specifically?
Boy, someone really speaking her mind on Fox News. I mean, the anchor. That's really
yeah. No, she's really confronting.
Very
her on
cool.
this.
Very cool.
And this thing about the White House will smell like curry isn't really playing too well with the Indian population, as you might imagine. Here's a headline about Loomer hurting him. Trump allies worry his ties to far-right activist Laura Loomer could cost him Georgia and North Carolina. The former president's allies say Trump needs to put distance between himself and Loomer, or the association risks alienating key groups of voters in battleground states. For example, there's a large Indian population in Georgia and North Carolina.
Oh, yeah, no, it's the politics of subtraction.
Yeah,
it really is. They just are doubling down and pushing the racism and the politics of revenge and shame. That's just what they're doing.
Right. And when confronted with this is Trump's explanation of his connection to Laura Loomer.
Republican colleagues or your allies who are concerned about your close relationship with Laura Loomer?
Well, I don't know what they would say. Laura's been a supporter of mine, just like a lot of people are supporters, and she's been a supporter of mine. She speaks very positively of the campaign. I'm not sure why you asked that question, but Laura is a supporter. I don't control Laura. Laura has to say what she wants. She's a free spirit. Well, I don't know. I mean, look, I can't tell Laura what to do. Laura's a supporter. I have a lot of supporters, but I don't know what exactly you're referring to. That's okay. Yeah, please. I just don't know. Laura's a supporter. I don't know. She is a strong person. She's got strong opinions, and I don't know what she said, but that's not up to me. She's a supporter. Please.
Traveling with you on your plane.
Okay. A lot of people do. It's a very big plane.
With you. She made racist remarks about your opponent. She also espoused conspiracy theories about 9/11. Do you disavow those remarks?
Well, I have to see what the remarks are. You're telling me for the first time we're here discussing the destruction of San Francisco and California by a person that's running for president. So I don't even know what you're talking about. I do know that she may have said something based on what you're telling me, but I don't know what she said. But I'll go take a look and I'll put out a statement later on. But I really don't know. Please.
He's really great at playing dumb. You know, like, I don't know anything about Project 25, whatever that is. I don't know anything about you're telling me for the first time. So you're telling me, maybe I'll look it up.
That's his go-to lie is always, I just don't know anything about it. I'll check it out. Maybe.
Right. So look, I know we've devoted a lot of time to this cat and dog issue, but I really wanted to drill in it because I feel like this is the Hitler moment. You know what I mean? This is the blood libel. He's running on blood libel, and he's doubling down and tripling down and quadrupling down. And this is what it's come down to. However, I do think that I see a lot of hope in the resistance to this and in the reaction to it. You know, one of the things that Kamala has done that is sort of under the radar maybe for a lot of people that's very helpful for her campaign is she's mobilized a lot of young influencers. Apparently, they invited about 150 influencers to the convention, put them up in hotels and fed them and whatnot. It's a little hurt that they didn't invite us. I mean, you know, we didn't even make the top 150, but part of it may be age discrimination because they focused, rightfully so, on young influencers. A lot of people on TikTok who have got millions of followers who I have never heard of because I'm square. Okay. And so one of the things that has happened is there's a song that sort of just a mix that got created called Eat the Cat. And what happens on TikTok, for those of you who don't follow TikTok, is people just make videos of themselves, you know? And so hundreds and hundreds of people have made videos home videos of this Eat the Cat. So I just picked sort of, I spent a few hours. I just picked some of my favorites, and we put them together in this supercut.
Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the cat. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the cats. They're eating the dogs. Eat the cat. 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 They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
John, to quote the old song, "It's hip to be square." That's you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the medley. I really enjoyed that. I love the dog at the beginning. For those of you who couldn't see it, it's just wonderful.
Yeah. For those of you who are only listening, it was a medley of pets, and anyway, it was just very funny of all the different people doing it. A very diverse group. But what I want to suggest is, Harry, you and I had elite educations where we were given the privilege and the requirement to spend hours trying to analyze the various different levels of meaning of words that famous people have said or written. Okay.
Agreed.
And I've given that same serious consideration to Eat the Cat. And I believe there's different levels of meaning to Eat the Cat.
Okay.
One of them is just a parody to make fun of him, which is great. The other is, I think, so there's derision, but there's also joy. These are kind of fun videos. And so it's also a way of, as you say, one of the things that Kamala Harris has done so well is integrate the joy of, real relationships and hope with derision for his ridiculousness and his bad evilness. And that's in these songs. But the other level, I feel, is that it's Donald Trump who's going to have to eat the cat. He is going to eat those words. Those are words that will go down in infamy. He will be remembered for those words, and those words will quite possibly cause him to lose the election. That was the turning point, right? He had a terrible debate for 90 minutes, but the worst was the cognitively impaired introduction of Eat the Cat that sounded completely nuts, and now he's running on it. And so I think part of this song is that really an act of rebellion and resistance, and basically saying, to use Kamala Harris's favorite quote, "Hey, motherfucker, you eat the cat."
I think you're right. It's a very beautifully kind of rich kind of tag on him, is my sense.
Yes.
And I'm glad we could see all of that. So,
well, you had some clips you wanted to show us from her meeting with the Black journalists, right?
I do. And I just want to say, I heard a pundit talk about the ways that Trump is winning the media coverage. Doesn't mean he's having a good week, but he's maintaining the focus on himself. He did this in 2016. He won almost every cycle. And because of that, it takes attention away from Kamala. Because there's only so much media coverage. So part of what he does is he says terribly outrageous things to gin up his base, because he's not creating new voters. He just wants to win by milking the countryside for his voters. But also he's maintaining the attention. And I don't want us to fall into that trap. And that's why I wanted to have a Kamala segment where we could see her demonstrating her grasp of policy and the way that she marries it with an empathic description of the experience of ordinary Americans. So, Rex, let's start with this first one where she talks about the sandwich generation.
So my plan is not only about 7% of income for working people for childcare, but also we need to do better for our childcare providers and our healthcare providers in terms of ensuring that they receive the wages that they deserve based on the dignity of their work. I have spent time with home healthcare providers, and their work is some of the most taxing work you can imagine. And I actually, when my mother was sick with cancer, did a lot in terms of taking care of her. And the work that is about taking care of a loved one, in particular an elder, is extraordinarily heavy in terms of the emotional toll, the time it takes, and we do it because that is what we do, but not everyone has the ability to take time from work to do it.
And look how that works. First of all, there's a real policy, no matter what the Republicans say. She has real ideas. A cap of 7% on childcare. And then she describes how hard it is for home care workers who work with the elderly.
Yeah.
And she then brings herself into it.
Yeah.
And talks so convincingly of the exhaustion that comes from helping someone to die, in this case, helping her mother, and saying that she had the privilege of having help. And so many Americans can't afford help for their dying relatives. I just think this is what a real leader does.
Yeah, yeah, and marrying policy and empathy at the same time. And what a contrast to Trump's response to what would you do about childcare, which was just completely thought disordered and psychotic.
Yeah, it was really disorganized speech. You can't get around it. We got to have childcare.
Okay,
all right.
yeah.
This next one has to do with medical debt.
Another example is medical debt. 1 in 4 Black families or individuals is more likely to carry medical debt than others. So part of my perspective, and as vice president, part of the work that we have done is to say that we're going to eliminate medical debt from being on your credit score. Because until now, medical debt worked against your credit score, and people know their credit score like your weight, right? You know that number. And the difference between what that number is and what it needs to be is the difference between you being able to get a car loan, a small business loan, or even a lease on an apartment. And so part of my approach is understanding the obstacles that traditionally and currently exist to allow anyone, including Black men, be able to achieve economic wealth. And I'm going to tell you, I don't think it is sufficient to just only talk about economic policy around reducing unemployment.
I just think that is so brilliant. It's, again, specific policy. And the way she talked about how people always know what their credit score is. I've never heard a politician ever say that. And there's a brilliant idea. Keep it from being factored into your credit score, your medical debt. So I thought that was wonderful. John, did you have a thought about it? Or?
Yeah, I want to say, because it's, when we talked about this earlier, you said, it's not one of these vague promises like I'm going to increase jobs. It's a very specific policy. And oftentimes Democrats bore people with specific policies, but the way she presented it didn't make it boring. It made it very compelling and relevant to real life. And to think about something like that this must affect the lives of thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people, right? We've all known people that didn't get apartments, because their credit score is too low, or didn't get the car loan, or didn't get the mortgage, So these are things that really prevent people's lives from moving on. And why? Because they have medical debt, because they had a medical problem, So this is how people at the lower strata of society keep sinking. And we're going to be talking to our guest later today about how the effect of that economic disempowerment has ironically pushed people into Trump's arms. But here's a policy, a very, very simple policy that will affect the lives of the ordinary American.
And so it's vivid, it's compassionate, and it shows leadership. All right, the last clip, and I think some of you may have seen this already. It's so beautiful. The journalist asked Kamala about the bomb scares at the elementary schools in Springfield because of the made-up stories about vilifying Haitians and saying they're eating pets. And this is what she had to say about it.
It's a crying shame. I mean, my heart breaks for this community. You know, there were children, elementary school children, who it was school photo day. You remember what that's like? Going to school on picture day? Who were dressed up in their best, got all ready, knew what they were going to wear the night before, and had to be evacuated. Children. A whole community put in fear. And I'll say a couple things about it. One, you know, I learned a long time ago in my career, having a background as a prosecutor, when you have these positions, when you have that kind of microphone in front of you, you really ought to understand at a very deep level how much your words have meaning. I learned at a very young stage of my career that the meaning of my words could impact whether somebody was free or in prison. As Attorney General, I was of California, 5th largest economy in the world. I was acutely aware that my words could move markets. When you are bestowed with a microphone that is that big, there is a profound responsibility that comes with that. That is an extension of what should not be lost in this moment, this concept of the public trust.
Now, the reason why I included that entire answer, which on Twitter or in the news has just included that really beautiful part about a little girls getting dressed for picture day, you can see Kamala remembering, is that the second move is in a very profound and respectful way, calling Trump out for being irresponsible, for not thinking about what damage his words can do.
Yeah.
This is the lesson that Trump, not only has he had not learned it, he rejects it.
Yeah.
Because the only thing that matters is his gain. And I just think she deserves applause for that kind of statement.
No, Harry, you're right. I'm really glad that you brought these clips of Kamala, and you're right that we can actually, ironically, help Trump. You know, my wife was saying, with all this focus on the cats and dogs, that's what he wants. You're taking the focus away from Kamala. So she was concerned about the very thing that you're talking about. And I think no answer to me more clearly epitomizes the difference between good and evil. One person is causing a terrorist attack and is continuing to cause a terrorist attack by telling racist lies. And the other person, what Kamala does, you're right, it humanizes it to say it was picture day.
Right.
Every child, every parent kind of knows what's a little special about picture day. And then to think about this school having to be evacuated because of Trump and Vance's irresponsible language and letting us know that it was picture day. I mean, that's, as a writer, I can tell you that's good writing, right? They tell you, show, don't tell, right? Show an event, an anecdote. Don't just talk about it, show it. And she did.
And the genius of Kamala is how she finds the detail. She finds it and then she voices it so that you can feel it. It's like when she smiled talking about her grandniece in that interview where her face lights up and she's embodying that little girl. I think this is one of her great gifts.
No, that's a very good point. Again, as a writer, I have to give her a compliment. They always say to go for those little details. And she goes, remember that when you picked out the outfit the night before?
Exactly.
That's great.
She even had that little posture of pride, you know, like you just
yes. The little child so excited about what they're going to wear the next day before they're bomb evacuated because of Trump's racist lies. For God's sake. I mean, Jesus, she's only winning by 3 points. I mean, come on.
Well, she's up by 5 in Pennsylvania and 5 in Michigan. And I keep saying to John, even though everyone on TV says it's going to be tight, I can't help but believe that she's going to pull ahead.
I agree with you, Harry. I am predicting that it will be an electoral landslide, actually. I think she's going to win so many of the swing states. I think it's going to be, I really think the polls are a head fake. I really do. I think that there's something very profound going on in this country and very powerful. And the polls, I think, are really underestimating it.
Well, I mean, if Trump's ceiling is 46%, let's say, she's going to get close to 52. I think that's what's going to happen. And
she's broken 50% in approval rating now.
Right. But if she
that's a magic number, 50%.
Agreed. And if but she has a little bit more room in there. And I think if she keeps doing what she's doing, she's just going to keep gathering momentum. Anyway,
I agree.
I'm so glad we had time for her. And I think for each show, I think we need to make sure that we have time to show her psychological health.
That's right. That's a very good point, Harry. I agree with you 100%. Well, getting off the subject of psychological health and back onto the subject of deteriorating brain damage.
Oops, I'm laughing at Trump. I'm sorry.
Sorry. We don't mean to laugh at his brain damage, but actually we do. So one of the things that we said at the outset of the show, we voiced a scientific hypothesis as psychologists. Okay. We said that Donald Trump is showing phonemic paraphasias, which you mention every show, and that neurologists and neuropsychiatrists tell us that a phonemic paraphasia is a symptom of dementia. And it's not that many other things that can cause phonemic paraphasias. But I argued that if Donald Trump does have dementia, then we would have to see his phonemic paraphasias increase.
Yes.
Right? Because it's a deteriorating mental illness, organic illness, not a mental, it's a deteriorating brain disorder. And so, I've talked about, Trump can't go through a week without a phonemic paraphasia. A week without a phonemic paraphasia is like a week without Alzheimer's, my little tagline. But one of our viewers, I want to give him credit, Michael Worley, sent me something where he said there were 7 phonemic paraphasias just in Trump's New York speech alone. So in other words, it used to be 1 or 2 a week. Now here's 7 in one day. So what we've done is put together a supercut. So this is a little quiz for all of our listeners. See if you can catch, because some of them are subtle. They're not all egregious. They're not all hilarious. You know what I mean? It's more the quantity of them, I think, that I'm pointing out here than the quality of them, that they are increasing. So we put together a supercut of his phonemic paraphasias on Long Island and see how many you can catch.
The biggest site anywhere in the world, probably bigger than Saudi Arabia, bigger than Russia. And what did they do? Illegal migrants, and they're not getting it from an unconscious person. I'd never heard of this. Rape. She pledged to abolish. Does anybody here have private health care? You worked hard. She wants to abolish anybody that's worked hard and made some money. Private health care, no more private health care. Enforce it. There's not one home. And in the Midwest, you read this, in the Midwest, we will terminate the Green New Scam and spend trillions of dollars. We're going to take the Green New Scam, one of the greatest scams in the history of our country. Remember when they used to say global warming? They don't say that anymore. They say climate change because the planet's actually getting...
All right, folks. Well, are you ready for us to reveal the answers? He said rough instead of Russia. He said migrants instead of migrants. He said Persh instead of persons. He said abolish instead of abolish. He said apra instead of abolish. He said Midwest instead of Midwest and buh instead of but. Last one's a little subtle. All in one speech. Buh.
Yeah, no, it's the decline is there, especially when he's riled up or tired. That was a night speech.
No, there you go. He gets worse at night, the sundown. So I actually took out some of the video that we had because I knew we'd be running too long, but I want to verbally describe it because the other thing that Trump keeps evidencing is that he is disoriented, that he often doesn't know where he is. Okay. So when he was in Arizona, he kept calling out to the people of Pennsylvania, talking about how great Pennsylvania was.
That. Yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean, it's like I could understand like messing up someone's name. I have trouble with people's names too. But I think I usually know what state of the union I'm in at any given time. If you're in an emergency room and they're doing a mental status exam with you, one of the questions they ask is, do you know where you are?
Exactly. Right. And who's president?
And who's president? And so he fails 2 out of the 3, in terms of being oriented to his place, person, and time, I think he fails 2 of the 3. He also, when he was speaking in California, pointed to an island. I'm sorry, I don't know the name of the actual island, but he said, you can see Hawaii from here. Well, of course, you can't see Hawaii from California. It's like, a 6-hour plane ride, a 3-hour plane ride away. So again, got confused. He also kept referring to Bagram, Alaska. When he was talking about the oil fields, instead of saying Anwar, he kept saying Bagram.
Well, because Afghanistan and Alaska are really neighbors.
Well, they both start with A, Harry. And when you're brain damaged, that's enough. That's enough.
No, it's ridiculous. But John, you said that there's the news media is finally actually writing about this.
Yes. Well, actually, Harry, why don't you read this? Before I put it up there, I just want to say this. So, we've been complaining and bitching here on the show about how the mainstream media is not covering his cognitive decline. Well, we have good news that a major publication, The Atlantic, has published it, and it's actually one of your colleagues, Harry, Richard Friedman from Cornell Medical School, Weill Medical School in the Department of Psychiatry there at Cornell, is the person that has brought this to our awareness in the Atlantic article. Amazing. So amazing.
I hope he doesn't lose his appointment there.
I hope not, because I hear they're very judgmental about that kind of thing.
Well, they have a brand.
Right. That's right. They have to protect their brand. So Harry, maybe you could lead us through this article.
Sure. Trump's repetitive speech is a bad sign. If the debate was a cognitive test, the former president failed, by Richard A. Friedman. But Trump's response seems to go beyond evasion. It's both tangential, in that it is completely irrelevant to the question, and circumstantial, in that it is rambling and never gets to a point. Circumstantial and tangential speech can indicate a fundamental problem with an underlying cognitive process, such as logical and goal-oriented thinking. Did Trump realize that his answer was neither germane to the question nor logical? In psychiatry, the tendency to conspicuously and rigidly repeat a thought beyond the point of relevance, called perseveration, is known to be correlated with a variety of clinical disorders, including those involving a loss of cognitive reserve. People tend to stick to familiar topics over and over when they experience an impairment in cognitive functioning, for instance, in short-term memory. If a patient presented to me with the verbal incoherence, tangential thinking, and repetitive speech that Trump now regularly demonstrates, I would almost certainly refer them for a rigorous neuropsychiatric evaluation to rule out a cognitive illness. A condition such as vascular dementia or Alzheimer's disease would not be out of the ordinary for a 78-year-old. Only careful medical examination can establish whether someone indeed has a diagnosable illness. Simply observing Trump or anyone else from afar is not enough. For those who do have such diseases or conditions, several treatments and services exist to help them and their loved ones cope with the decline. But that does not mean any of them would be qualified to serve as commander-in-chief. And to be honest with the audience, I had some struggles when I had an appointment at Cornell Weill, because I was told that I shouldn't be speaking publicly about Trump's obvious cognitive decline. So it gives me a certain amount of pleasure to see another member of their staff actually write about what John and I have been talking about for 5 months. We mentioned all of those symptoms since April? But thankfully, in some ways, our work has really, it's not done, but it's taken us as far as we needed it to, because now it's something that can be spoken about in the press and by clinicians publicly.
Right. So that, better late than never, even if they are hypocrites. So Harry, before, when we said it, it was bad. but now it's good.
Sure.
Okay. You
Yeah.
understand that?
I do. And I'm glad we've had this awareness meeting.
Me too, because I feel like my awareness of their hypocrisy has been increased. But while we're making fun of them, this is a breakthrough because in others, yes, this is a reputable academic in the mainstream press, The Atlantic, laying out the case about the tangentiality, about the perseveration, about the lack of logical thinking, and the fact that this would be, for anyone else, an emergency neuropsychiatric evaluation.
Absolutely.
So I'm grateful, even though we've had to take our lumps, and that it's gotten through. That's the important thing. That's what really matters.
Absolutely. Well, we're giving a great welcome to our guest, Arlie Russell Hochschild, who is a professor emerita of sociology at Berkeley. And we've had a lot of really good guests and with a lot of expertise, but Professor Hochschild's CV reminds me that I've spent all of my life in academia, and I feel like I'm introducing someone at a colloquium in my department. So I put together this very, very brief introduction. She's the author of 10 books which explore the ways in which human emotions, shaped by culture and social context, drives human choice and behavior. She is one of those wonderful sociologists who take into account large data sets, but then go into the world to explore their implications. Her latest book, Stolen Pride, Loss, Shame, and the Rise of the Right, which was just released this week, takes her to Kentucky 25, a very red district in Kentucky, and to the ways in which the area reacts to a neo-Nazi march. Unlike many sociologists, Professor Hochschild is a wonderful writer, and her books will take you into the felt experience of her subjects. I realized when delving into it how she has influenced younger sociologists like Matthew Desmond, whose book Evicted will blow your mind about the housing crisis, or the work of Philippe Bourgois. We are pleased and honored to welcome you to the podcast.
Well, thank you very much. I'm delighted to join you.
So, Arlie, it's so great to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about how you thought of this project and how you went about pursuing it?
Well, maybe let me back up and start a little more personally. You know, you are psychoanalysts, and my brother was a psychoanalyst at the Boston Psychoanalytic Institute, 6 years older. And I loved how he talked about patients, names off, or, members of our family, just how empathic, how much he took himself out of the picture and really listened. So it's no accident that I, in sociology, have, in a way, been saying, wait, there's a whole way of seeing, a whole toolkit. And I just love the space you're opening out here and wonder if we don't need to enlarge this space where psychology meets sociology meets the scary issues we're faced with today.
Absolutely. I have to say, just to be honest, that we're not psychoanalysts, but we've been analyzed by psychoanalysts.
Okay, all right.
We're clinical psychologists, but we are very much part of that tradition of psychodynamic thinking.
Yeah.
And I agree with you that there's such a room for thoughtful sociological exploration. And you've been talking about the ways in which particularly the working and poor classes are marginalized and how they are dealing with the deep feelings that they're having. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. The last two books, Strangers in Their Own Land and Stolen Pride, have really focused on how it could be that in very low income and beleaguered areas of the United States, people are turning from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party and even the extreme side of the Republican Party. What's going on here? How can we really understand this? Not just judge it, but get behind it and go from anger that's visible on television, every rally, back to what caused the anger. And, you know, in this case, I believe shame. And beyond that, why shame? So it's sort of a going backwards kind of method of approach. And what I've picked in this latest book is a congressional district, Kentucky 5, which is the whitest and the second poorest in the country. And it's an area in decline. And it's rural, semi-rural, coal country. So coal jobs have gone out. The pride of being a coal miner gone. And opiate crisis has come in, and all the distress and chaos of families, like proud family tradition, but chaos introduced. And then there was a neo-Nazi march in 2017, and I thought, oh, I'm looking at a perfect storm. First, there's the vulnerability, and then there's the appeal to that vulnerability from the hard right. And so it took me 7 years. I'm a slow worker. I'm the kind of interviewer that kind of, you know, came and went. I didn't go away. I got to know people, amazing people. And so this is a book that really, in a way, is about a local version of what I think is a national trend. If we look at whites without BAs, 42% of the American population, they are sinking relative to whites with BAs and sinking relative to blacks with or without BAs. So both absolutely and relatively. And we know there's a kind of a social logic of downward mobility that does involve drugs and marital breakup. So it tells that story. And I've tried to it's an invitation to become bilingual, to read political rhetoric with a second eye. One, what's the person saying rationally? Two, what emotional appeal is going there? What signals are being exchanged that we're not reading, we're not seeing? So it's an invitation to see more of the way psychologists do.
Yes.
You know, it's very interesting because I'm glad you brought up shame, because that's a very important psychological concept. And so one way, I think this is what you're saying, tell me if I'm wrong, one way that we're understanding this is that some of this fascist Nazi behavior is a defense against shame. That if you're feeling shame, right, one way to relieve yourself of that feeling is to decide that you're actually the victim of someone else's bad behavior, and that you have a right to strike out to correct the situation.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. I actually think that Donald Trump, who is something of a shamed person as a personality, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Very harsh father. I'm not sure he reads. And a shamed person, but brilliant about, in a way, appealing to a whole population that suffered a kind of structural shame, that its whole sector has gone down.
Yes.
And structural shame. So
like that.
it's that. There's one guy that told me, he's a MAGA guy, said, I think Donald Trump is lightning in a jar. And I asked him, what's the lightning? What help me understand the lightning? And so we kept having conversations, and he showed me around the hollers where his family had long lived. And in the course of things, I came up with this thought that, and I tried it out on him, that Donald Trump presents his followers with a 4-moment anti-shaming ritual. And we're exposed to it, different versions of it every week, every month. Although many on the Democratic would say, no, he's just ranting and they're just deluded. And what we need to say, no, wait a minute, don't call it a rant, don't call it delusion. Let's look at it and how is it working on people? So the 4 moments are these. Moment 1, Donald Trump says something transgressive. He'll say, all immigrants are poisoning blood of America, or they're eating cats and dogs. Okay, says something transgressive. Moment 2, the punditry shames him. It says, we're an immigrant society. How can you say that? Or, that's not true. How can you say that? Bad on you. You're shameful. That's moment 2. Moment 3, Donald Trump becomes the victim of the shaming. Look how it hurts. Look what they're doing to me. Is it like what they're doing to you? Yes. So we have that in common. I love you. And I'm taking the hit for you. Do you know what they want, what they're doing to me, they want to do to you. So you and me together, charismatic leader, that's what charismatic leaders do. That's moment 3. Moment 4 is the roar back. They shamed me. Now shame is blame. In their minds, it wasn't so much, but it gets legitimated, what I call feeling rules. Rules are now, it's okay to blame. And his roar back is cathartic, I think. And so I think Democratic part of America is listening to 1 and 2. Oh, he's shocking and it's terrible. And the downwardly mobile white non-BA sector of society that has been shamed structurally is tuning into 3 and 4. And we're not bicultural enough to kind of say, oh, that might, okay, let's offer them some better solutions than this.
And there's something attractive about the transgressive, right? Because, that he's saying what I think, someone's finally saying what you're not allowed to say, right? That's sort of part of it.
Right. That's right. It's bold. And we need bold. It's manly. We need manly. Because men are at the core of this. The men are in a crisis. I think we really on the left need to look at. It's big and it's consequential.
This is so great because we've been trying to talk about how Trump creates this relationship with his audience, and you've really given us the mechanisms for it. It reminds me of 2 things. One, it's something I talk to my students a lot, which is that we were so wealthy after World War II. We were rebuilding the world. We made cars for the world. We were so flush that when Eisenhower said, let's build an interstate highway system, they did it, right? There was so much money. The UAW workers could own a house, a cabin, 2 cars, and their wives didn't have to work. But by the 70s and early 80s, now the wives had to work, and that was okay. And by the 90s, even that wasn't enough.
Yes.
It is a catastrophe. And the one thing I want to say, the story I wanted to share with you is up here in upstate New York, I live in Ithaca, but I have a little cottage in the country of land I bought a long time ago. And on my land, my neighbor who worked construction and all kinds of things, didn't go to college. Really one of the smartest people I know. I love talking to him. And he pastures his cows on my land. But when the pandemic happened and he lost his job at a lumberyard, He told me that he was getting more money from the government than he had been paid. And he was deeply shamed. And that's what the left misses.
Yes, completely right. Completely right. The left line is, well, look, blue states fund all the welfare that red states use, but which is true. But what they are not looking at is that the example of the man who pastures his cows on your land in upstate New York, and others like him. And an example of it, and from my own research, getting to know people in Appalachia, if a coal worker becomes unemployed, he gets his pink slip, he goes on food stamps, he gets in the car and shops farther away from the home so people don't see that he needs food stamps. Strong shame. And that fits into an idea that I was thinking about and develop in this book, which I call a pride paradox, that the people in the more downwardly mobile areas of the country, these Rust Belt, rural, semi-rural areas, tend to have a more old-fashioned, individual-oriented culture of pride. So if I succeed, that's on me. I get to feel proud. If I fail, I didn't read the cards well enough and I didn't work hard enough, I'm ashamed. And the paradox is that in the more upwardly mobile blue states with more flourishing economies, more resistant to offshoring and automation, and those economies, you have people who have more circumstantial notion of pride. Well, things went down, but the whole sector went down. It's not my fault, or this happened to me because of my gender, my race, other things. It's not, that shame doesn't sock you in the solar plexus as hard. So the pride paradox puts together your economic situation with the culture of pride you apply to it. And Donald Trump is kind of drilling into the shame of those who are dead center for the pride paradox, harsh on themselves and harsh conditionally faced with tough economy.
That's fascinating. I'm going to share one more story with you if I can, Arlie, and John, I promise I'll let you talk next. But I heard Anthony Scaramucci, of all people, tell a story I'd never heard. And John, it was almost a sir story because he addressed Trump as sir in the story. It was during the 2016 campaign, and Trump gave a speech in the Midwest, that was protectionist, isolationist, and et cetera. And Scaramucci went on the plane with him and he said, "Sir, that really wasn't a Republican speech." And Trump said, "You're a moron." And Scaramucci said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You're from the East Coast, right?" He said, "Tell me," Trump said to him, you're socially liberal and fiscally conservative, right?" And Scaramucci said, "Yeah." He said, "That's not what these people are. These people are fiscally liberal and socially conservative."
Yeah.
And that's how he nailed it.
Yeah. Wow. That's right. That's very interesting. It's because they do know they need help. People that I've talked to, they talk as if the government is in the wrong hands, but it's not that they don't want the government to do anything.
It's interesting. I really love this term structural shame. I feel like I learned, it's like the first time I got the understanding of what institutional racism was. It really, I think, is sort of a similar sort of maybe low working class white version, because it's built into the society. And so we need to see those macro forces. But I'm also contrasting that, ironically, with the book that catapulted JD Vance to a place of pride among the East Coast intellectuals, which is Hillbilly Elegy. It was on everybody's 10 best lists. I'm a National Book Award, et cetera. And the thing that people loved about that book is he critiqued his own culture. He said, the thing about us, hillbilly folk, is we don't take responsibility for our failures. He said, we blame other people, we're always right. If somebody attacks anyone in your family, they're wrong, no matter what your family member did. And if things aren't going well for you, it's somebody else's fault. You always have someone else to blame. And that's what's wrong with my people. He said, that's what's wrong with my people. But now he's just gone on to revert to becoming one of them, reverting back to being one of them. So I think it's actually an interesting tension here. To some extent, we're really dealing with people who are being oppressed in a way that may be invisible, that we don't appreciate. But psychologically, they're also organized at a level where they're primitive enough that they don't take responsibility for bad things that happen to them. They project blame, whether it's their fault or not.
Right. They project it, they protect themselves from it, but more deeply are faced with it. If they believe in strong families, but families are split and the kid on drugs is stealing from grandma's pocketbook.
The opioid crisis is really
and that's big. And of course, it was at the center of Hillbilly Elegy. So there's a lot of buried shame. He faults him for not taking blame, for not being four square in the middle of the pride paradox. Actually, it's interesting. He's saying you should be, because you did it, and they've found an escape hatch to the pride paradox. And he wants to stuff them back in it and say you, and then also say me. So everybody's individually responsible for everybody's problem. There is no psychology, no sociology in this worldview. It's just you, individual one, individual two, individual three. And I think, that is why so many people hate this book. Liberals are fascinated. I was moved by it and moved by the movie as well. I know a lot of people couldn't watch it even because of what incensed them. You focused on it beautifully, zeroed in on it. And I think there's a giant paradox, my favorite word, is that all of Vance's policies are a giant repetition compulsion. They would put young women first. He says, well, you're nobody unless you have children. Okay. And you have to have kids and have them young, he says. So you don't need in vitro fertilization. Have them really young. Have kids. He's got 3 and on more. Have them young. And he's now Catholic. So under no circumstances can you, if you get knocked up at 13, that you could do anything about it. And then he says nothing about a public dollar for drug recovery. He would recreate the circumstances that created the mother that traumatized his childhood.
Well, because part of the paradox, right, is that though Trump addresses the shame psychologically, economically, he disadvantages these people even more. So he's actually increasing the structural poverty while he's addressing the narcissistic injury.
Yes.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. Which is a giant repetition compulsion. So it's going to make more shame in this
exactly, because
area.
they're going to keep sinking.
or we're just, that's right, more fuel to be exploited.
And John, I just want to revise one thing you said. He said he became one of them. No, he became a leader who's exploiting them. He didn't become.
He joined the people who were exploiting them, who were
Exactly.
creating the economic shaming. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So he's really a traitor to his people.
And a lot of people, there are 2 books written countering Vance. It's one called Appalachian Reckoning, and another it's called, Exposing Vance. So a lot of Appalachian scholars are up in arms about him, but he's an interesting example of what we're up against and what we need to see that's happening in this area. Is just to confirm what you're saying. In the 4 years that Donald Trump was president, did Kentucky 5, this hard-off congressional district, improve in any way? No. He promised, coal jobs will come back. Coal continued to decline. He promised great new other jobs, factories coming to town. No great new jobs came in. And he said, tax cuts too, but tax cuts are for the rich. And if you're a second poorest, you're not paying many taxes.
Exactly.
So that didn't help either. And actually nationwide, if we look at hourly work, and most people, get hourly wages. And we look at in those 4 years at hourly wages together with benefits, it went down. Nationwide, it went down. So we're really dealing with, it's actually a familiar conundrum, whatever happened to Kansas posed this.
Yeah, exactly.
What it really points to is the importance of us understanding emotion and culture, that's where it's going on. And a lot of people have given up on government as a rational bureaucratic enterprise and say, look, we haven't been helped. We're in this downward slide that you were referring to from the 70s on. Mom's working, but now even still we can't pay the bills. And that we're going to turn to a charismatic leader. Max Weber, kind of in my hood, is a big deal. Sociologist who distinguished between different kinds of leadership: traditional leadership, charismatic leadership, bureaucratic, rational leadership. And Biden's a perfect example of a bureaucratic, rational leader. What he'll say, don't look at me, look at my policies. Aren't they great for you? Look at the policy. I'm invisible. They're in headlights. Get it, kids? No, they're looking at him. And he seems like a brother, but not a fierce dad.
Arlie, I want to interrupt you. Because we've been pushing this point. I've been finding Kamala Harris to be emotionally evocative, appearing strong, but also showing empathy for people's entire experience, not just the shame that you're referring to. Do you see her that way, in the way that she's relating?
Yes, I think what we're looking at is people are looking at her, but are they changing their votes? We're not seeing that yet, although there's a marginal group we have yet to see. I think she's made no mistakes, actually. What I feared was that she would, I'm the first woman, I'm the first Black. The people I've been looking at have an allergy to that because they feel stepped over. They're sinking. And you have to speak to that feeling of being stepped over.
Yes.
Find a way. And she could say, look, I know a lot of you Americans have had a hard time and are struggling, and I will be the president to reach out to you. You know, your pain is my pain. I think I wanted to see more of that. A lot of the Democratic Party was showing leadership from other groups, and this is great, as we don't want to go back. But this is a group of people, and again, it's over 40% of Americans who feel like the status system, their purchase on pride is melted. They feel it's like global warming, but that their purchase on pride it isn't just that they've lost the job or they're doing a job that's more shaky. You know, you could be fired tomorrow. You're doing it long distance. It would be easy to be fired. They're more anxious about their status, but also they're faced with devaluation, that the things that they really knew how to do and others acknowledge that they were good at doesn't matter. Now, AI may bring the same shot therapy to the middle class, but at the moment it's offshoring and a turn to different sources of fuel for energy that's doing it to this group. But that's what we can learn from and attune our Americans on the other side of things to that way, so they can empathize.
I love it. You know, I know we're running out of time. John, did you have a final question?
No, I don't. We are running out of time, but I really do appreciate your introducing us to this whole issue of shame and the big effect that's having on a macro level and the systemic shame. I think that's really a useful concept. I'm going to take that with me.
Great.
And Arlie, you're so eloquent and insightful. You know, there's still time for you to get analytic training. So.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks again.
Okay, great.
All right, Harry. Well, we're up to the shrink wrap section of the show. What have we learned this week?
We learned really that awareness can expand, that the culture can learn at least parts of it, parts of the media, parts of the clinical community, can learn to be able to say what they see right in front of them. And thanks to the work of George Conway that you've helped him with, the work that we're doing and colleagues of ours are doing, I think there's been a turning point in Trump's power. I think he is really now on the decline, in part because of his diminishing cognitive capacity. And in that debate, that terrible moment when he just appeared to be psychotic, he just appeared to be saying something psychotic. And although the election may be closer than I think it's going to be, I think that we're headed toward success and avoiding the catastrophe of having an impaired person in charge of our country. That's what I would say, I guess.
Yeah. Well, what I wanted to talk about is I wanted to get back to Eat the Cat.
Absolutely. What do you have to say, John? Tell me.
Well, I feel like you and we're not too old to join the TikTok revolution. And Eat the Cat, I think, has become an anthem of resistance. Okay.
Yeah.
Because that motherfucker is going to eat the cat. He is going to eat those words. And I think that this is to me like a war whoop. You know, in war, how they always bang drums or have war whoops. And you might wonder, why are they doing that? Just wasting breath. Just run down the hill and shoot the other people. I mean, why are you wasting? Because that creates morale. That creates enthusiasm. That creates confidence, right? And so I see in Eat the Cat a war dance, a war whoop. That this is an act of resistance.
John, are you rationalizing your wish to start dancing at the end of the show? Are you rationalizing it? Is this your way of satisfying your hypomanic need to kind of lose it? Or could it be something else? Well, I mean, is this a serious political statement you're making, or are you really just justifying dancing? I think it's important for you to be honest with yourself.
I believe that Eat the Cat is a serious and urgent and needed political statement. And I am ready to join the movement.
And John,
and I would invite you to join it with me.
Well,
to stand with me on eating the cat.
Well, to be honest with you, John, I do think it's a political movement. And also you help me to express my own underlying hypomania. So hit it, Rex.
They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the cats. They're eating the dogs. Eat the cat. 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 Eat the cat.
My old cat Hagar.
They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats.
Thanks, folks.
Keep dancing.
ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there had been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
People on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television said my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
The people on television said the dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme.